Hello, my name is Rex Winn. I'm an Iron Speed Designer MVP, and today I'm going to be taking you through a custom tutorial about how to go about embedding a table control within a table control. And the purpose for doing something like this would be to allow multi-level editing, say for example orders, order item details within an order, and uh, to do this example and to bring it home in a way that makes sense, we're going to be using a article that was written by Gil Javati, and we're just going to go through and we're going to follow his steps literally by the numbers. This is going to be a little bit different than what he's presented, and his sample application is going to be quite a bit different as well. What I'm doing is I'm taking a out-of-the-box compiled IronSpeed application that I've pointed at the Northwind database, and I've just generated a full application, as you can see. Um, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a new form into the orders section of our application, and we're going to make customizations to this form as we go along. Now, some gotchas along the way are this form is going to take a parameter, an employee ID parameter when it loads. And so before we get too far into the example, we're going to do some customization not mentioned in Gil's article in order to bring this all home together and make it work properly. So without saying too much more, let's get started. And let me give you the background really quick. I am using Iron Speed Designer version 5.1, and this is Enterprise Edition. But we are using the Northwind database provided by Microsoft with the Visual Studio install. So if you have Visual Studio installed, you should be able to go into the Program Files directory and find this database. Interestingly, there's not much difference between the Northwind and the Southwind database, so if you can't find Northwind or don't have it, use the Southwind database that's included with the IronSpeed application, and you should be able to follow along fairly well with the example. Now I'm using a VB application because that's what Gil has selected in his article, and so that's the path we're going to head down. And as we go along, I will definitely point out the really key points that you need to make sure to follow up on so that your application will compile and work at the end. So let's get started. Let's jump back into our IronSpeed application. We are in our orders section. And let's go ahead and pick up with Gil's tutorial. Now there is some verbosity to his article that I'm not going to get into. If you want, the URL is visible up here. Should be easy to find in the KB. If you do a search on creating nesting edit table panels, that'll get you what you're after. So let's just jump down into the procedure and let's pick up in step 1. So we're going to create a new page and we're going to call it Edit Orders, and this page is going to bind to the orders table, and it's going to take an employee ID parameter passed as a URL. Okay, fair enough. Let's go ahead and get that rolling. So let's go into our order section, new page, and we're just going to follow the wizard along. It'll walk us through this process. We need a data entry table. We're going to use an edit table. We're going to say next, and we are going to call this edit orders, and we are going to take the defaults, and again the defaults are fine, and we're going to finish. And the very first thing that we need to do with our table is set it up to handle that passed in parameter. And if we don't do this, we're going to be awfully disappointed when we go back to do it and we lose all of our changes. So let's go ahead, let's compile this application and get it synced up. And now let's pick up, we are in our edit orders. Let's go ahead and configure this control. And it's set to the Northwind MDB orders table. And what we want to do for the query is we want to add a where clause where we're going to take the Northwind MDB orders dot employee ID is equal to a URL parameter, and we're just going to call this URL parameter, let's call it param employee ID, and we'll say OK, and then we'll finish. And we'll save and compile. And now we're ready to pick up with the rest of Gil's instructions. At this point, we have an order table control. It is set up to take a passed-in employee ID parameter, and from that parameter, it is going to pull orders from the order table and allow us to view the order details. So let's finish this example and let's move on to the next step. So we need to add a data-bound literal to one of the cells in this table control, and we're just going to call it literal. This literal should be assigned the value of order ID. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to click the customer ID, and I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to insert an HTML column to the left. And then from the toolbox, I'm going to get a data-bound literal, and I'm just going to drag this up and release it. And then it is supposed to be called literal, so we're good there. And now we're going to hit save. And now let's double click this control and get into its properties. Since it's data bound, we need to bind it to something, and we've been instructed to bind it to the order ID. Again, let's save. And let's see. Add a cell to the edit table, or excuse me, we're up here. Add a data-bound literal. This literal should be assigned the value of order ID. Now step 3 is add a new HTML table cell to the data row and add another edit table panel into that cell. Okay. So again, I'm going to click here, and I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to select Insert HTML, column to the left. And now we're going to drag a data entry panel in out of the toolbox. And again, we're just going to go with an edit table control, and we're going to release that into our cell. And we're going to configure this to hit the order details. So we'll select that, and we'll move it across, and we'll hit finish. Let's save that again. And then let's jump back to our instructions. So we added an HTML table cell, data row, another edit table. This new edit table displays records from order details. We've done that. Now we need to add another table cell next to the buttons of the newly created edit table. Position a label called reservation ID label. Okay, let's go do that. So we want to go down into our data row. So up here we have our orders table, and here we're in our row, and what we're being told is to add a cell. So we're going to right click, and we're going to insert a column to the left, and into that column we're just going to drag a regular old label in. So let's pull that across. Now let's go get the information on what we're supposed to do with that label control. We are supposed to call this reservation ID label and assign it a value of 0. Okay. So name reservation ID, and then let's double click that. And we'll give it a display value of 0. And then let's go ahead and save. And let's build everything. And now we've got that done. Let's go ahead and jump back in. Add a data-bound literal to the data row and call it reservation ID. This literal should be assigned to the value of the order ID. So we'll call it reservation ID. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert HTML column to the left. And we're supposed to add a data-bound literal. And we need to call it reservation ID. And then we're going to set it to the order ID. And we're going to save. And then we will build. And next we are going to go into the code customizations. So we're going to start in the orders table control row, and then we're going to go to the order details table control, and then we're going to finish up with the orders table control. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Now, as we copy some of this stuff out, we need to be careful because comments are going to get messed up. But what we want to grab right now is this code here, and we're just going to copy this. And we want the orders table control row is what we want. So let's go after that. So we are in the orders code, and we want the orders table control row, and I believe we want data bind. And in here some nifty little bookmarks are showing us where to go, so let's go ahead. And what we want to do is we've told the application that we're going to inject some of our own custom code in the data bind event. And what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this code out of here, and we're going to paste it over the top of this code. So I'm just going to take all of this out except for our class closing parameter, and we're just going to back that up. Oops. Now we're going to paste our code in here, and let's just make sure that we keep our comments clean as we're doing it. And here is our sub. And let's push that in. Okay, now let's just make sure we've got everything. Current order ID is that. There's our literal. Order details table control. Okay, this looks good. Our literal, order details. All right, this looks clean. Let's go ahead and hit save. And now let's go after our next piece of custom code. And it looks like a much bigger section. What we're going to do is we're going to get several events here. We're going to override the create where clause. We are going to override the save data. And we're going to override the load data. Now what this means is we only need to grab this code here. I'm just going to copy this. And what we're after is the order details table control class. And we'll just grab the load data. Order details table control class load data. So So let's go back into our designer view. And now we want to go into the order details. And we're going to go order details, table control class, and I believe it was load data. Let's double check that. Order details, table control class, load data. All right. Let's take that. And again, IronSpeed has bookmarked where we actually want to do our work for us. This is nice. So let's just make sure. Public class order details table control, base order details table control. Order details table control. All right, this looks good. So let's go ahead and we'll sweep out all the template code. And let's go ahead, we'll delete that. And let's fix our formatting to maintain readability. Let's paste. And what we've got now is a little bit of cleanup to do. Because we have some different namespaces now. Here we have nested tables.ui. Well, that's not what we're after. We want the Northwind namespace. So we're going to Control C, and we're going to come back down. And we just need to be really careful that we get all of these. We're going to overwrite that. And we're going to get that one. And that looks pretty good. Now let's just make sure that at pasting out of there we didn't whack any comments. This looks good. Current, that all looks okay. Now let's see here. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's go after our next customization. So now what we want is the order details table control row class. We're going to override the data bind method on that. So let's grab all of that and we're going to copy. And let's go order details table control row. Right? Order details table control row. And that's here. And let's grab the code. I believe we're after, shoot, I think we're after the data bind. Yes. Okay, and here we have our bookmarks again. So let's just come in. Let's take out the template code. Clean up. And paste. And public sub, we got a little bit. Let's just clean this up a little bit. We'll just stick that in. There we go. Now let's make sure that everything came through okay. There's nested edit tables. We want to call that, I think, Northwind. Yeah. Yep. So let's see here. This literal equals northwind.ui. Current literal, find control, if else end. Let's clean that up, make that a little more readable. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's save it. And let's jump back in. And here what we're doing is we're seeing all of the code customizations that we've made to this point, except at the very end we are going after the orders table control. And we have a little bit of cleanup that we're going to have to do with this code. Let's go ahead and grab it. And we're going to override the save data. So let's control C. So we're orders table control save data. Let's jump back into that. So orders up here, code, order tables control save data. And let's jump up to our bookmarks. Let's take out the template code. Paste in our hours, and we need to fix that. And fix that. And then we have a next without a 4. Hopefully we don't need that. Let's pull that back. And let's see, let's just double check everything.